I'm Shannon Martin. Tonight, a community left shaken after a drive-by shooting sent 5 people to hospital.
They are innocent. They are bystanders. They are just standing there.
Tonight, police say the hate crimes unit has been notified, but the motive for the attack remains unclear.
It's like it's just another parade, but it's like the first time again.
A long weekend filled with celebrations for the first time in 2 years with no public health restrictions, leaving many to weigh the risks during this 6th wave.
Harden now to Maxey, and the reverse. He's been something else.
A rough Game 1 for the Raptors playoff series against the 76ers will set you up for Monday's Game 2. Thanks for joining us. We start now with the latest in that drive-by shooting in Scarborough. You saw it first here last night. 5 men were coming from Ramadan prayers when gunfire rang out. Greg Ross has our top story with more from the community and also police who say, well, the hate crime unit is involved. The motive for the attack tonight remains unclear.
The whole community is very concerned about this shooting.
Abdul Majid Bala is the president of the Scarborough Muslim Cultural Center. He says one of the victims of a drive-by shooting early Saturday morning is a member at the cultural center.
One of the victims is leading the prayer over there.
Majid Bala says that man is now in hospital recovering. He was among 5 who suffered gunshot wounds. Police say the 5 victims met here in the parking lot of this shopping plaza after attending prayer services. They were deciding on a place to go and eat when shots rang out. Majid Bala says young people often gather socially in this parking lot late at night during the holy month of Ramadan. They then go and eat together after a day of fasting.
They are innocent. They are bystanders. They are just standing there. They didn't mean to harm anybody. They're just planning for their night food or something. And suddenly somebody comes and starts shooting.
Police say 2 of the victims remain in hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. At this point, police have no information about suspects.
We do believe that the suspects were in a vehicle that was traveling by, but we are working very hard gathering surveillance video footage to try and corroborate that.
Police have not determined a motive in this shooting, but investigators say they have notified the Toronto Police Hate Crimes Unit as a precaution.
We have no information to suggest that whatsoever. However, we can't rule that out either.
In the meantime, prayer service continues at the Muslim Cultural Center and other mosques in the community as residents here wait for answers.
We are community is pretty confident in the police department, so they're going to do the investigation.
Police here say that they are going to use all resources available to try and find the people who are responsible for this shooting in hopes of giving the people in this community some relief. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
To some developing news this hour, Toronto police are at Yonge subway station right now investigating after reports that a woman was pushed onto the tracks. It happened just after 9 p.m. Police say the woman was found by emergency crews. She was conscious and breathing and is in stable condition. Officers say right now they do not know how she managed to avoid getting hit. Early reports suggest she may have found shelter under a ledge. Police describe the suspect as being a white female wearing a pink and gray hat, black puffy jacket, and carrying a red bag. Officers say there is excellent video surveillance. A large number of police are looking for the suspect. We'll bring you more details on this story as we learn them. A woman who was a victim of a hit and run in downtown Toronto earlier this week has now died of her injuries. The 30-year-old, whose name has not been released, was hit near Spadina and King West around 3:15 Thursday morning. The driver allegedly stopped, then sped away shortly after. Police have released images showing a white Mercedes convertible. It's believed to be a newer model with red interior. Police say it will have noticeable damage to the front end. The driver is a man with dark hair. Anyone with information is asked to call police. Well, today in Toronto, people celebrating Easter, the first holiday since the pandemic restrictions were fully lifted. St. Michael's Cathedral Basilica opened its doors to a full congregation, the first time the church has been filled for Easter Sunday in 3 years. It was a big contrast to last year when only 10 people were allowed inside the church at a time. There were sermons and music from the choir. Many spoke afterwards about the joy of returning to in-person traditions after a 2-year absence. Well, most COVID restrictions are gone across the country, leaving many people this weekend weighing the risks of gathering during this 6th wave. Valeria Corey-Minocchio has that part of the story.
After a 2-year hiatus, the Toronto Beach's Easter Parade is back.
I'd say we missed it quite a bit. The kids certainly missed it.
It's not as crowded as it usually is. A lot of people are being cautious, and that's okay too.
Cautious is the word of choice for this Montreal area rabbi. For the first time since the pandemic started, her synagogue organized a communal Passover Seder.
Whereas in the past we might have had 90 people, this year we had 30. We had everyone rapid test before. We kept people at small tables.
With Easter, Passover, and Ramadan, many Canadians are celebrating important holidays this weekend. And for the first time in 2 years, there aren't restrictions to factor in. So people are having to make their own decisions.
I personally had a lot of questions about, is it okay to? And that's really hard to answer because I think we cannot have a zero risk situation, but we can do reasonable things to reduce the risk.
Parishioners at St. Michael's Cathedral Basilica in downtown Toronto told us reducing risk was still top of mind this Easter weekend.
We just had a small gathering.
I don't care how much they lift it, I'm keeping the mask on.
While restrictions are mostly gone, experts emphasize vaccination, masking, and good ventilation. And some warned about relying too heavily on that rapid test, especially if you're experiencing symptoms.
A negative was never meant to tell you you're not infected. It was always meant to tell you that you are less infectious. And with Omicron, that can change quickly. So test right before, and then if you're worried about symptoms or the fact that you're feeling unwell, test again later.
Just another decision Canadians now have to make for themselves. Valeria Corey-Minocchio, CBC News, Montreal.
Time now for our first look at the forecast. Lots of people getting together today for a sunny Easter Sunday, though it was chilly out there this morning. Sophia is here with our first look at the forecast. Hey, Sophia.
Hello, Shannon. Happy Easter, everyone. Hope the little buddies at your home enjoyed finding all of their goodies. I gotta say, mine weren't too happy about having to put on their jackets with today's below seasonal conditions. But yes, that afternoon high sun angle was just lovely, wasn't it? And believe it or not, the Easter Bunny picked the better day to come visiting because we are talking about snow for tomorrow. Winter weather travel advisory in effect, really. Waterloo, Dufferin, Innisfil, and Southwest all the way to Windsor. Heavy, wet snow is expected. Dicey, slick drive right after the Easter weekend. Even shoveling snow for some of you. Let's spell it all out for you. Overnight is uneventful. Calm, cool, clear. Then the clouds roll in early Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, the wet snow is in place for those of you in Windsor and in London. By the evening, wet flakes are flying for everyone across the GTA. Now, it's not going to stick for anywhere around the lakeshore regions. That's where mostly rain is expected, but it won't take much for snow to accumulate for areas with higher topography, tapping into that cooler air mass. Mount Forest, Orangeville, I'm talking about you. For most of us, it's a trace up to 5 centimeters. For those of you in Ottawa, this could be quite a bit more. 5 to 10 centimeters is expected. Coming up, I'll tell you about how Tuesday will feature more of that rain-snow mix, including more gusty winds, and how this snowfall forecast and what factors are in play to make it go from bust to boom. Shannon.
If we're still talking about snow, thanks, Sophia. Well, 2 rapid response teams from Toronto are headed to the Philippines after flooding from a tropical storm killed more than 160 people in the last week.
I'm part of the team that's heading to Tacloban in the Leyte region. There's already a team right now that is in Iloilo. We're bringing a few units with us. We're bringing 4 units altogether.
Global Medic says the main objective is providing clean drinking water. The country is in the midst of a crisis after the storm, forcing thousands of people people from their homes. Team members will provide supplies such as water pumps and purification systems. Each system offers up to 3 gallons of clean water every minute. The war in Ukraine once again dominated a message from the Pope as he delivered his Easter Sunday address at St. Peter's Square.
Sia pace per la martoriata Ucraina.
Pope Francis again denounced the war today, calling it cruel and senseless. He urged people to demand an end to the violence, saying peace is the responsibility of everyone. There is so much death in Ukraine right now, but there is also new life. Pregnant women are being forced to flee to the country's west to give birth. And even there, as Katie Simpson shows us, it is a struggle to keep newborns safe.
Maria's arrival, a moment of joy amid the chaos and sorrow. Her father, Pavlo, laughs, proudly declaring she looks just like him. The new parents swing from celebration to despair, navigating the complicated reality of welcoming life into the world during war. It's very scary, and I never want anyone to live through the same experience, Yulia says. The family fled Kramatorsk when she was 8 months pregnant, afraid she would give birth as bombs fell on their city. The head of Western Ukraine's largest maternity hospital says some 200 women have made a similar journey, leaving dangerous parts of the country to deliver here where it's comparatively safer. It's hard psychologically for the parents and our staff, she says, telling us they arrive in tears with anxiety. Frequent air raid sirens make it worse.
When air raid sirens go off, this is where patients, little babies, new moms and dads, and doctors are supposed to come. Now, you have to watch your head. It's a very low ceiling here, and the conditions, they're very, very difficult. If you come on in here, you can see this is what they've got for a temporary shelter right now if those air raid sirens go off. There are benches, there are blankets, there are beds. The floors are dirt. I'm told no babies have been born here in this specific location, but if you just look right over there, you can see there's a birthing chair just in case.
It has the feeling of a tomb rather than a place where life begins. Babies requiring special care can't be taken into the shelter. The equipment they rely on to stay alive can't be set up properly in that space. It means families have to wait out each and every air raid siren in these less safe wards. Construction on a modern bomb shelter is underway. The hospital is asking for donations to pay for the expansion, acknowledging Russia's invasion caught them off guard. We were not ready for that, Dr. Malachinska says, but we prepared everything for ourselves in a short period of time once the war started. Pavlo and Yulia ache to go home soon. They bought and renovated a flat which they believe is still standing. For this time, everything is okay, Pavlo says. What comes next, only God will know. And so they wait. The growing displaced families of Ukraine.
That report for us from the CBC's Katie Simpson. Well, a shooting overnight at a house party in Pittsburgh has left 2 people dead and 9 others injured. The house was a short-term rental. As many as 200 people were there. Police say most of them, including the 2 who died, were underage. They say there was some kind of fight shortly before the gunfire started. Police believe there were multiple shooters. More than 90 rounds were fired. Welcome back, Raptors fans. Have you recovered from last night? It was a rough one. Game 2 in the first round playoff series with the Philadelphia 76ers goes tomorrow. The team will look a lot different. Dale Manukduk is at Scotiabank Arena to set things up for us.
Shannon, tomorrow night, thousands of fans will once again pack Jurassic Park to watch the Raps on the big screen. But unfortunately, perhaps also watching Gary Trent Jr., Thaddeus Young, and rookie sensation Scotty Barnes. Trent is out with a non-COVID-related illness. Meanwhile, Thaddeus Young, he left the game in the second quarter with a sprained left thumb and was forced to leave the game. But the big blow is Scotty Barnes, who was having a hell of a playoff debut. 15 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists in just 32 minutes. He left in the fourth quarter after Sixers star center Joel Embiid, who's 280 pounds, stepped on his ankle. Barnes did have an MRI, and the team is waiting for those results. Here's head coach Nick Nurse.
Having, Scotty out There's a ball handler that we use at times as a point guard, bringing it up the floor, so that may change our thoughts on who we use. If Thad is out, there's not really a replacement for him.
So obviously a terrible outcome to game one, losing 3 key rotational players, and the Raptors are still going to have to figure out a way to slow down the dynamic duo of James Harden and Joel Embiid. And the scary thing is that they didn't have a very good game. They had off nights, but still found a way to be effective. And one other thing to look for heading into game 2 is how the referees will officiate Joel Embiid. He got away with a couple of physical elbows, knocking some Raptors players down to the ground. Will that change? Akil Augustine, host of NBA Canada, doesn't think so.
It should even out over the series. If there's huge discrepancies through the first 4 games, then it's definitely a plot that has to, be addressed. But we'll see how it levels out. But I definitely think that this is kind of what you see in the playoffs with big guys too, because they kind of get mistreated sometimes. Big guys get a lot of hits that don't get seen. So you give them a little bit more leeway than you would some other players.
So a lot of storylines heading into game 2. If there is some hope, it's that coach Nick Nurse says that the Raptors have been doing this all year, playing through injuries. This time there's just a little bit more on the line, Shannon.
There sure is. Thanks, Dale. He's reporting for us tonight in Toronto. Well, longtime Blue Jays broadcaster Buck Martinez announcing he's taking a little time away to undergo treatment for cancer.
Go away for a while. I've got cancer, and I have to address that, obviously. But you know what? You're going to be in good hands with Dan and Pat and Scotty, and everybody's going to take good care of you.
You are as tough as they come. You are as beloved as they come. And we know you're going to beat this, and we know you're going to be back with us soon.
The 73-year-old broke the news ahead of this afternoon's game against Oakland. He played his final 6 seasons of his Major League Baseball career with the Jays before retiring in '86. That's about the same time he started his work in the broadcasting booth. Blue Jays president and CEO Mark Shapiro called Martinez a dear member of the Jays family and a fixture in the Canadian baseball community. An Indigenous runner originally from Wikwemikong unceded territory on Manitoulin Island is set to run the Boston Marathon tomorrow. Shayla Manitowabe Hubner has been running since she was in the 6th grade. She never really aspired to run the Boston Marathon, but when the opportunity came up about 2 months ago, she decided to run with it. Now living in Utah, she's part of the Native Women running team. She hopes to inspire other Indigenous girls and women to take up the sport. We wish her all the best tomorrow in Boston for those 42 kilometers. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Queen Elizabeth drew the attention of royal watchers by not attending today's Easter Sunday service. Prince William and the Duchess of Cambridge attended. The Queen suffered a recent bout of COVID, and she has admitted to some mobility issues lately. She also missed an Easter service Thursday. Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall took her place then. The Queen turns 96 in just 4 days. Well, the Beaches Easter Parade was back today for the first time in 3 years. Lots of smiling faces along Queen East earlier this afternoon. Spectators were treated to marching bands, floats, and dancers. It's the first time Toronto has had the event since 2019. Community members were very happy to see the parade return.
We have missed this parade for the last 2 years. We're so excited to be here this year to start off a brand new season with all the parades that we do, and this is the first of, so we're really happy about that, aren't we? Yeah.
The parade is organized by the Beaches Lions Club and is regarded by many in the city as a Toronto institution. The club says it's also the largest Easter parade in North America. It's also the oldest, having started in the late 60s to mark Canada's centennial year. Talk about a beautiful day to take in a parade. I think people just enjoying being together, and of course all that sunshine. Sophia's back with the full forecast now. Hey, Sophia.
Hey there, Shannon. Yeah, it was breezy too. It was a cool wind as well, but you didn't notice the cool down as much. Again, in that beautiful sunshine, you will certainly feel the difference though come tomorrow. That rain-snow mix that we talked about earlier. So you went from the beautiful sunshine in the parade to the cool, damp conditions that you may experience Monday evening if you're headed out to Jurassic Park. Let's talk about the road conditions on Monday as well, because throughout the day on many of the major roadways, you will have heavy snow falling, slick conditions, and how many of us out there are still using winter tires? That's the question. Let's talk about the snowfall now, because it won't take much to make this a non-snow event. Southerly flow off the lake could up the temperatures substantially. On the other side of the coin, all we need is a few degrees cooler, and this could be much more of a snow event for everybody. And there's one more wild card making the Monday and Tuesday snowfall forecast kind of tricky, and that's a secondary low pressure system that wants to track in and join up with our Montana low, potentially creating a new track and switching things up on us. Regardless, things are going to be quite chilly. We're about 5 to 6 degrees away from where we should be this time of year, even more so on Tuesday, where with the wind chill, things will feel just a couple degrees above the freezing mark. Tuesday, by the way, will start off with some more snow, end up with rain, and feature more gusty winds. When do we warm up finally, you ask? It won't be until Wednesday into Thursday. That's with some more rain, but then we have a consecutive stretch finally of seasonal conditions before, well, things fall off the rails yet again into next week. Shannon.
Well, it is a bumpy ride as usual. Thanks, Sophia. Well, mark your calendars. One of the most beautiful times of the year is right around the corner. It's almost time for cherry blossoms to bloom. According to Sakura Steve, a local enthusiast in Toronto, the trees in High Park are looking healthy with well-rounded buds with green tips already poking through. This is footage from last year, by the way. That leads him to believe peak bloom for the trees will be moved up from early May to the last week of April, weather depending. And finally tonight, a special birthday was celebrated at the Berlin Zoo, home to what's believed to be the world's oldest gorilla. That's Fatu. Check out the birthday cake in honor of her milestone 65th birthday. She is a Western lowland gorilla, first brought back to the zoo in 1959. They have a normal life expectancy of about 40 years in the wild and about 50 years in captivity. That's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you again soon. You can catch the news tomorrow night with Chris Glover.